This is Off the Break Podcast, presented by Silver Screen Insider.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Off the Break Podcast. I'm Kyle in the hosting chair, and joining me is my good buddy, Eric.
Hello.
How's it been?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of another slow news week, but it tends to happen when Cody's not here. You know, maybe it's just because the phone's not ringing as much, but
She picks the best weeks.
yeah. But I mean, we've got a couple good things to talk about today.
Yeah, I think we got some juicy stuff for everyone to listen to.
But I mean, the biggest news probably is going to be I saw Joker last night. I understand you wanted to, but something came up, so you couldn't quite make it.
Yeah, I was not able to. I will tonight. My reactions will come at some point soon, hopefully.
I'm really curious to see what you think.
Yeah, because after what you've told me, I'm definitely going to be very curious about what you thought.
Yeah. So, like, I guess when I think back on Joker, I was sold on the trailer, the first teaser, as I think a lot of people were.
Yeah, myself included.
You know, the cinematography
Very
was
surprised.
there. Joaquin looked great in the role. Just the overall, the tone, the feel of it all was it was dark. It was a little artsy. It was, very unexpected, especially from DC. And then I kind of was even more intrigued after the next trailer. And then it debuted at Venice and it won the top prize there. So people were like, holy crap, this is like a legit awards contender. This movie is this like not just a great superhero movie, but like a great movie. And then the whole incel shooting controversy kind of reached a peak.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started getting a little more mixed reviews from people who saw it early. And I was like, okay, this is a little interesting. I guess I'll just have to see it myself and see what I think. And I didn't love it. I didn't love it. I wouldn't even really say I liked it. I liked parts of it. I would give it a solid 5.5 out of 10.
Well, what parts of jeez. the rating just hit me. Can you at least go over some of the positives anyway that you saw out of it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, Joaquin is great. He's genuinely one of the best working actors right now. But he definitely makes the most out of the material he's given. He's able to make a lot of the very on the nose kind of exposition dumpy dialogue sound at least semi natural, I guess. And he just looks the part. Seeing him on screen is it's magnetic. He just draws your eye. And there are there's several scenes that really get more out there in terms of just kind of more abstract and artsy. In the trailers, when it shows him dancing, there's like 2 or 3 key points in the film where it's just him dancing with like the music, and they're kind of like these transitionary points for where he goes deeper and deeper into his own
madness,
psychosis,
psychosis, I guess is a better term.
And those actually work pretty well, because the biggest weak point of this film is the writing. It's the dialogue. It's how characters talk about the themes so bluntly, and when that's not in the scene, when it's just him dancing, everything about him is conveyed through this like interpretive dancing, and it works pretty well. And that's when the direction kind of shines through, like at like the midway point where he kind of becomes the Joker. He goes off his meds and he embraces what he is. One of the dance numbers like ends with him just in this grimy, disgusting New York subway bathroom. And it kind of ends with him doing this little ballet thing and looking at himself in the mirror with the messy, runny clown paint. And that actually worked really well. But it's all the stuff in between that just drags it down.
Yeah.
First of all, it's obviously trying to say important things. These are very important topics, themes. A great deal of people are or feel either cast out of or isolated from society, from, like everybody else somehow has it figured out. Why is it not working for me? Sort of, kind of mentality, and then of course mental illness, which is a very huge topic, which is very important. And it's trying to talk about those, but it just comes across as inauthentic because I just don't think Todd Phillips and Scott Silver, who was the co-writer, really ever tried to do any actual research on specifics of this. I think they were just kind of like, mental illness is a really important issue and we're going to write about it.
Yeah, through the Joker character.
Yeah, and the way that comes across, though, is just, it's so superficial and just kind of like a blanket term. Like, there's a scene where he's learning about his mom, and literally the whole scene is just the guy who was working with the records opens her file, and he just starts reading off these mental conditions, like, oh, it looks like here she had psychotic delusions and neuroparanoia, blah blah blah, and it's just, he just lists these things off, and it's, I don't know, it really rings hollow, and yeah, I don't know, that's the reoccurring thing, is that just, you watch it, you can't really describe it until you see it, but it doesn't really seem like Todd Phillips like has any personal experience with any of this stuff.
Right.
He didn't really consult with people who have experience with any of this stuff. It almost seems like he's just kind of going down a list, checking off boxes of things that are gonna really make Arthur's life just miserable.
Sure, those check boxes to
like,
make him get as close to the Joker.
His mom is kind of crazy. His mom
Check.
doesn't love him.
Check.
He had an abusive childhood.
Check.
But all of these things are very real, like real things that happen to people all the time.
Yeah.
But it's the way that this movie goes about presenting it as just sort of like a formula. It doesn't work. You see right through it. But the movie is just trying to be so self-important. Like, we're like patting itself on the back, like we're the first to really start this conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like, you really don't get it. It's so much deeper than this. Just because you're acknowledging it in the most broad terms doesn't mean you're actually saying anything about it.
Right. It's kind of sounding like it's telling us that these are hard issues, but it's not showing us.
It's like, hey guys,
why
guess
or
what?
how
There are mentally ill people who society hates. Doesn't that suck?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's horrible. What are you saying about that? It's like, no, it's just horrible.
But
right?
it's bad.
But a thing that I should also clarify is, very blunt, on the nose kind of things can work if like the universe kind of is established that way. Because Gotham City has always been, a character of its own. That's kind of a cliche to say, but
it is.
Gotham City has always been kind of its own character. It's a very seedy, crime-ridden place where people are just awful in it.
Yeah, certainly.
It's a huge part of just the Batman universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the movie handled that better, I could see how, everybody treats Arthur just like crap, because that's just how Gotham is. It's a very exaggerated version of what happens to a city when, the evil or the maliciousness runs rampant without anybody doing anything about it. It could very well have worked like that. But they don't build Gotham up any more than just like 2 clips on the news where it says like, the garbage is spilling out of the buildings and there are super rats in the sewers. That's all we know about Gotham.
So Gotham just doesn't recycle?
Yeah, Gotham's just a really dirty place.
They just need street cleaners.
It goes from that, and those two things are like within a couple scenes of each other. So it's like, okay, Gotham it's kind of a dirty place. Then there's a scene where one of his coworkers, who was also like a clown, is like, it's horrible out there. You gotta protect yourself. And then he gives him
a clown business, right?
Yeah, it's weird seeing him like interact with other people, but this random guy who you don't know at all, it's not really established that he's friends with Arthur, because you would think that everybody at work is kind of weirded out by Arthur.
Sure.
But he's
even
just
for clown standards.
Yeah. This guy's like, it's you got to watch your back out there. Here, take this. And he gives him like a revolver just out of nowhere. And when that happens, it's just like, oh, this is what happens with mentally ill people. It's just really easy to get guns. And it's like, it's just so out of nowhere. It's like, okay, I guess he has a gun now. Like that, it happened. He has it now. And then just there's just so many leaps where like like I said, it goes from lots of garbage in Gotham, really big rats in the sewers of Gotham. All of a sudden, everybody in Gotham is like angry at the elite class, and they're taking to the streets and rioting.
Well, there's no recycling bins.
It's just such a big jump. And it's, again, the biggest thing I can say about this movie is there's just no subtlety whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, to a big fault. Everything is, they sit you down and they spell it out for you. And the dialogue in general is just, it's pretty poor. I don't know.
But despite the dialogue being poor, Joaquin's still able to pull it off.
Most of the time. I mean, there's a key scene when he goes on to Robert De Niro's character's talk show, and he just spells out the whole theme of the movie for like the 14th time, where it's like, what do you get when you cross a mentally unstable loner that society casts out and tramples all over? And it's like, oh my God. First of all, you don't speak like this. You've never spoken like this at any point in the rest of the movie. It's like so literal and just so not how his character has ever talked or sounded before. It's, yeah. You got to see it to really understand just how dishonest it all kind of feels. But there's still going to be lots of people who, it's going to work for them. They're going to eat it up and say that this is a very serious, important movie. Mm-hmm. It's talking about these serious issues, which it does. Just, it didn't ring authentic to me.
Yeah. I mean,
it was pretentious is the best way to put it, which I've said in the office here is when you come across like Reddit film criticism or just like, pretentious is one of the most thrown around, overused, incorrectly used words. But this movie is definitely pretentious.
It's definitely that.
The actual definition of pretension is trying to come across as more important or sophisticated or important than what you're actually saying. Mm-hmm. And that's 100% what this movie is doing. Everything from the original score, which is the most melodramatic thing I've heard in recent memory. And I usually love like really prominent musical scores, but when it's paired up against this just blunt kind of amateurish writing, it just exacerbates everything. And it's like, oh, this is kind of cringy right now. But like I said, there are good parts.
Yeah.
For every good scene, there's like 2 or 3 bad scenes.
That's funny because I don't know why I thought of it, but just you saying that reminds me of like my viewing experience of The Kitchen.
Oh yeah, yeah.
For every one like tolerable scene, there was like 3 others that were just like not helping its case, which happens, but it's frustrating.
No, yeah, like I said, the best scenes are when it's pretty much just Arthur before before he comes Joker, mm-hmm. whether it be him dancing or him sitting at home like watching the Robert De Niro's character show, fantasizing. Some of those things work. They're still pretty blunt, but at least you're not hearing the dialogue of him interacting with people, because that's really where it's just not nearly as nuanced as these themes are, mm-hmm. and so it just comes across as somebody who doesn't really have anything to say about it, but they want to be seen as, sophisticated because they're willing to at least like acknowledge them.
Okay. Well, that's a bit frustrating to hear. Hopefully I at least get a different experience than you out of that.
Yeah, no, I'm really curious to see what you think.
It's also kind of funny because initially, like with this movie, like there was talks of this movie at film festivals having 8-minute standing ovations.
Yeah, it won the top prize at Venice. It's like, what?
Goes from winning awards and then suddenly like it just starts kind of slowing down to where it's like, Joaquin's good, but it's not saying much otherwise, along with what you're saying.
There are very big differences in how a lot of European film criticism sees things than American. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm really interested to I want to look into who was kind of on the jury at the Venice Film Festival and see if I can find their specific individual takes on it.
Yeah.
Because, maybe they're seeing something I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
But if I were to boil it down, it's a pretentious movie that points out a lot of things, but is just not capable or willing to actually try and say anything about it.
Well, that's also kind of frustrating on a general spectrum, because so many people have been hearing like, stay away from this movie. This movie might make you do bad things.
So
or this
not
movie is dangerous. And it's
this movie is so not worth the controversy surrounding it.
Initially, that's what we were thinking initially. Like, in the end, like, any movie could be controversial. Yeah. Any movie could have someone, have someone lashing
character,
out.
I mean, incels are not going to see themselves in this movie.
You don't think
like
so?
That was one of the big arguments that people were championing, is like, this movie's going to empower incels or these mentally ill people to commit mass shootings or something, and this is not that type of person. It comes across as a very out of touch older guy who knows nothing about internet culture, who's he's like, these types of people are out there. I know about them. Yeah. This is what they are. And it's like, dude, no.
He's just
that is not what that it's so much deeper than that.
Right.
So much more complicated than that.
Well, I'm sure there's still theater owners and managers that are going to be nervous about showing this movie and still be cautious, of course, still be prepared.
It's all because of the media
safe.
hype around it.
Sure. I mean, which is frustrating, but if you still feel concerned, that's very fair, and make your theater as safe as possible. But if you trust Eric's word a lot since listening to us, we might be okay.
If you find yourself anxious or nervous, maybe if you're in a bigger city or just you're more anxious about the possibility of something happening, going to see this movie, just stay home. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it. Just stay home.
So you're saying maybe people could go see this if they would like to, but if you're not feeling
special.
Up for
it's nothing special.
Sure.
The only thing going for it is that it's different than Batman v Superman or Justice League.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not a very serious comic book movie.
It's more deep than a blockbuster, a usual blockbuster.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to be.
Trying to be.
It's trying to be.
Right. Well, I think if we let Eric go on any longer, he's gonna blow a gasket. Yeah, I think he's gone on long enough for his feelings.
There's going to be a lot of hot takes for a long time to come, but
I think so too.
I'm really curious to see how it does come award season, because my personal opinion, yes, Joaquin is really good. I don't think it's really anywhere close to his best performance because of the material he was given.
What do you think his is?
Probably,
just out of curiosity,
probably The Master is my favorite Joaquin Phoenix performance.
Yeah,
but you can only make this amateur so writing so much better than it actually is. And it's total props to Joaquin, because he did about as good as you could, if not more, with this stuff. But at the end of the day, there were just too many moments in the film where the words coming out of his mouth they're almost laughable.
Yeah. I mean, I could probably see him being able to land a nomination for many awards just because it's Joaquin.
Oh yeah,
and that's
I'm sure he'll be nominated for Best Actor. I'm very confident he will.
I mean, even though it's still very early, but I think it's not too far-fetched.
I'm just more curious about the movie itself, because the past 2 or 3 Venice Film Festival winners have all at least been nominated for Best Picture. The past or Shape of Water ended up winning Best Picture. So I'm wondering if this is going to be nominated for the Academy Award, Best Picture.
I'm not sure either. I mean, I would say it probably has less of a chance, only because with the past winners, they kept their strong word of mouth, at least from a critic's standard.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, I've seen a dip. It still has pretty much great or pretty solid responses anyway.
Yeah, it's mixed to positive.
There is still a trajectory to where it's dipping in how much people like it as compared to the start of when it was being shown, when Joker was being shown. So that's just
it's not
what I think is possible.
It's not a bad movie, but there's just so many questionable and cringy moments that dominate the good stuff. So you kind of come out of the movie like, oh, that was kind of a mess.
Well, that's a bit disappointing, and hopefully people have different opinions about it too. Hopefully people like it more than Eric did, myself included. I'm really hoping, because I've been a little bit hestant about this movie for a while.
You were hesitant for a while.
Trailers have been selling me more.
I was kind of laughing at myself after I saw it, because I was so confident. I was like, I feel like it's going to be good. But then Todd Phillips kind of started shooting himself in the foot with this press tour right up until the movie came out,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of colored a lot the way a lot of people saw it, myself included. And yeah, I don't know.
Well,
but I'll hear what you have to say on Monday.
yeah, we'll
But
see about that.
That's all I have to say on that.
Anyway, let's get away from this Joker talk to talk more about Joker.
Seriously.
Well, not necessarily Joker, but Joker's cohort or girlfriend, Harley Quinn, because her official standalone-ish movie dropped a trailer this past week.
Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Great job saying that title, because I didn't want to say the full thing.
Yeah, I thought that looked. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the trailer right now. It's kind of the biggest trailer that came out this week. We figured we'd give it kind of a highlight.
Mm-hmm.
I've on record saying Suicide Squad is probably my most hated superhero movie of all time.
Rightfully so.
I hate it.
I understand.
I hate it. I think it's terrible.
It's not
I
good.
hate Jared Leto's Joker.
I'm mixed.
But one of the things that pretty much nobody can deny is that Margot Robbie was pretty darn good as Harley Quinn.
The best
I would
part.
say, yeah, she was absolutely the highlight of the movie.
Perfect casting, perfect portrayal of the character, like the standout.
And so this movie is being marketed as about the Birds of Prey, which is kind of like, I don't know enough about them.
Basically, it's a group of solo superhero or super villain characters, and they have their own team ups. Like, they have a lot of comics under that title, so you see a lot of characters together, like Batgirl or Black Canary, Huntress. A lot of them are Batman characters.
The thing is that
like,
it's like a female group, though, right?
it's a female group of superheroes and supervillains. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of the premise of this movie, is they all kind of have their own reasons to come together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there'll be comparisons like, this is just female Suicide Squad. But
Stylistically, I can see to a point.
But yeah, it's a very stylized trailer. Like the colors and the marketing and everything. It's having a lot of fun. Very vibrant.
Yeah, neo-gothic vibe.
They're definitely centering or focusing on Harley Quinn, which makes sense from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah. I'm
wondering how much, how big of a role the other actresses will have in it. I'm hoping it's more of an ensemble thing.
Yeah, I do too. Despite me loving the character, like, I am really curious to see these other female characters just because of how they look, of how they're acting and interacting with Harley throughout the trailer. So I would like to see more of them.
Ewan McGregor looks pretty great as
oh my gosh,
the villain Black
He
Mask.
stood out to me the most in that trailer. He's just so good.
He is. I was laughing at me and my girlfriend were laughing in the theater because you don't see too much Ewan McGregor. Like, when you do, it's kind of like, oh yay.
But
like,
when he does, though.
But we saw back-to-back trailer. It was Doctor Sleep, then this, and she just started
okay.
laughing. Like, this is. I have never seen so much Ewan McGregor at one.
He's
at
coming
one
back, man.
Or he looks
left,
sadistic. He looks just totally, just psychotic. I mean,
for a second, he made me think like he could be a good Joker. I mean, I like that he's in this movie with this character, but I think he could have pulled it off if they gave him a chance.
there need to be a lot less Jokers going forward.
Well,
no more Jokers.
Maybe that's the case.
No more Jokers.
But anyway,
I see what you're saying, though.
Did you have more thoughts about the trailer at all?
No, I mean, I'm just so unfamiliar with the IP.
Sure.
I'm curious to see how Kathy Yan, I think is her last name.
Yeah.
How she directs it, because her last movie, The Rider, was
Christina Hodson.
Oh, that's a different. I'm getting her mixed up.
Okay.
Lore was her other movie, and that was like a really acclaimed kind of smaller, more ambitious, artsy indie movie from a couple of years back. So again, it's that transition of, you find this independent filmmaker who had one or two really acclaimed small films and give them a blockbuster superhero budget. Let's see how they do. But I'm confident. I like the tone. I like the hyper stylized feel of the movie.
Yeah.
And Margot Robbie looks as great as ever in the role.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, she certainly does. I do like the vibe of this trailer that's giving off. It is like an IP that many people aren't going to be recognized with, which makes sense why Harley Quinn is so much in the center of all this. I think down the road we'll see more of these other characters in trailers or whatever, but I think for right now, people love Margot Robbie and people love Harley Quinn, and I think they can get behind this character in this type of movie. Yeah. So we just need to see a bit more of it, of course. Like, trailers just only give you a snippet of things, but it's selling me enough when it was a movie that I had no idea of what to expect anyway. Mm-hmm. As I think will be the same with many other people.
Yeah, so keep an eye on Birds of Prey.
Yeah, that trailer's up at silverscreeninsider.com, by the way, as well as a bunch of posters that debuted this week as well. So
Yeah, you can
just
get a
head
feel
over
for
there.
that just very, very colorful feel.
Yeah, just if you guys want a feel of it, or if you want any sort of information about the movie coming out in February, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so news items. Did you want to talk about Clerks 3? I know it's not on our
I didn't put
docket
that on the
here,
paper.
but
Oh yeah, just
it's
'cause
fine. Let's talk about
I
it.
love Clerks so much.
Yeah.
So it's a small little story, but a couple years ago, Kevin Smith, directed Clerks. It's kind of a legendary indie film story. Everybody kind of knows about.
Yeah.
But Clerks 3, he announced Clerks 3 a couple years back. He said that he had completed the script. It was the best script he'd ever written. He was really excited. It was going to be this poignant, kind of emotional culmination of the story of Clerks 1 and Clerks 2.
Mm-hmm.
But then shortly afterwards, Jeff Anderson, who plays Randall in the movies, kind of backed out, I guess. At the time, it just kind of seemed like he was a little self-conscious of being so typecast, and he didn't really like people saying Randall quotes to him in public. He's not really a big actor. He just wasn't that kind of person. He didn't like it, and he's like, no, man, I don't want to do that again. And so without him, you can't really make a Clerks movie. So
Yeah.
Clerks 3 was effectively canceled. Apparently after that, there was like a big falling out that I wasn't aware of until Kevin Smith spoke about it recently. But fast forward to this week, and apparently Kevin Smith and Jeff Anderson have, reconciled. They forgave each other after a chance meeting at, some convention. And Clerks 3 is back on. Jeff Anderson said that he's like, okay, yeah, I can do this, because Kevin Smith pitched him a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin Smith has just begun work on a brand new script, which is, is curious to me, because he said the last one was the best script he'd ever written. He was very passionate about what he had done. So I'm wondering how many elements of that will still make their way into this script, or if he's just going completely fresh. But I saw that and I got kind of excited, because I like the Clerks movies a lot, and I feel like at this point in Kevin Smith's life, because he's had a lot of big life-changing moments. He's had his perspective on a lot of things totally rearranged, and he seems very reflective and a lot more, mature, kind of sentimental, I guess. And I'm really curious to see how that translates into the third and probably final Clerks movie.
Which makes me totally okay that he's probably going to be writing like a brand new script and a brand new story. Like, not only is he at a state in his life to where it will reflect his career a lot better, but also like probably match up a bit better with the times. Like, because there's movies where if one finally gets released, you can kind of see in the writing like, ooh, this was made a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So despite like that previous script probably being the best he's ever written, maybe it wasn't going to work for the
why
times
couldn't this
we're
one
in
be
now.
better?
Yeah, and this one could be better. We just don't know. But it's nice to see him where he's at in his career, and him being able to make amends with a friend, especially after, like you said, what he had to go through in terms of that massive heart attack that was near life ending.
Yeah.
We would have lost a great talent for sure, and a great guy. So glad to see him being able to go back to these projects, trying to make stuff new from old, and just being able to enjoy what he loves doing, making movies.
No, he announced that, and I keep kind of forgetting that Jay and Silent Bob reboot is coming out in like a week or two.
Right, yeah.
I keep forgetting about that. I don't suspect it's going to be a very good movie. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is not a very good movie. A lot of Kevin Smith fans kind of, they like it. It's kind of a guilty pleasure.
Sure,
but it's not a good movie.
And I'm sure, like, if he listened to you saying that, he'd be like, hey, man, like, I get it.
I enjoy it. I like to watch it, but it's not a good movie.
Sure.
And that's kind of how I think this Jay and Silent Bob reboot will be. But when I heard about Clerks 3, that is like by far the thing that I'm focusing on.
Yeah. Well, there you go. If anyone's a Clerks fan out there,
Clerks 3 is back on the menu.
Yeah, it's going to be made, so that's awesome. Good for them.
Well, this next one, this next headline kind of was your thing. You found out about this. So
Stop.
Give me the rundown. What's going on with Apple TV and how they're gonna distribute their original content, their movies?
Yeah. So Wall Street Journal released an article last week. We weren't able to talk about it on the podcast. Like, it just came right after we dropped the podcast episode. But basically last week, Wall Street Journal came out with an article explaining that Apple TV Plus is planning on releasing their films that they make themselves not only, or that they distribute themselves not only to their service, but also to theaters. And they're planning on doing the same way that Amazon Studios does by agreeing to the terms that theater chains set up to have like the 3-month window of when.
Yeah, where it's not streaming.
Yeah, where it's not streaming, it's only playing in
exclusive to
theaters.
the traditional way, the good old way.
And they're doing this pretty much just because they don't want any backlash from theater chains, kind of like what's happening with Netflix as they strive for. And then they're also just hoping that this will attract like big name directors and producers. So probably like the classics like Scorsese's or the Spielbergs, try to get them.
All of those
projects.
all of those like really talented, very serious like auteur filmmakers or producers or big name talent. A lot of them are very. They truly believe in the traditional communal experience of seeing a movie for the first time in a theater with a bunch of strangers. You all get in a dark room and go on this journey together. And I feel like that's commendable. That's an admirable thing that they're doing.
Yeah. On top of that, it looks like the types of movies that they're going to be making are going to be trying to reach for awards caliber status, which is why it seems like there's going to be moving forward with producing all of their stuff with A24, or A24 is going to be producing the movies they distribute.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which I thought that part was pretty interesting, but it mostly just makes me happy that a streaming service, and especially a service made from Apple, who loves, having money in many ways that they can. No offense, like
next to Disney have like infinite money.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see them being like, hey, let's like pay respect to theater chains, or at least to maybe small theaters if this goes over well, if this plan goes over well, and let's give them our movies and see if they play well, because Amazon Studios does it this way and they find moderate success. They're not all big giant hits, but they're also not stories or movies to where it's supposed to be giant hits, but just moderate success levels. So if they stay with that format, I think Apple TV Plus releasing in theaters should be able to hold up just fine.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what they have. It'll be cool to see, like you said, a studio or at least a company with that much money and that much like ability to finance these projects to kind of put a focus on these more mid-tier, maybe more dramatic movies. They're not going to just try and make their own superhero big blockbuster things,
right?
Because there's quite a bit of those already.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's cool.
Yeah, just it also makes me happy that we're not going to be hearing more horror stories about streaming wars, at least from this
isn't
story,
a movie.
anyway.
This shouldn't compete in the Oscars.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to keep going through that, so I'm happy that a streaming service at least
you're
being
gonna
like
be going through that here
with
at
Netflix
Oscars.
at least. Yeah, true.
Yeah,
but
it's not going anywhere.
at least this service is trying to not look like the bad guys, and it's just being like, hey, let's just agree to their terms. Like, it works for Amazon Studios, and we're making the same type of stuff that they will, or maybe better stuff. I don't know, but we're at least gonna follow their example. So well done by Apple TV Plus. I got to give them credit for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we really only have one last story to talk about. This one, actually, you also just brought up to me, but I thought that this one was cool.
Yeah,
it's really interesting. I guess I'll let you kind of summarize it.
This story is so cool to me, but I don't know why other outlets aren't running with it more. Yeah. Like, I only have seen it on Hollywood Reporter because they're the ones reporting it.
Interesting look into the passage of time.
Yeah. It seems lately that a lot of authors or creators of some properties, such as Friday the 13th or Terminator or things made basically
mid-late 80s.
Mid-late 80s.
Very, very
which is
iconic
cool.
franchises.
Which is the cool thing now. Reboot that stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. 80s forever.
But those creators of those type of properties from 35 years ago are finding a clause that was made back in the 70s where after a few decades, like, authors are allowed to have those rights being taken back to them from studios.
Yeah, like, okay, guys, you had your time. This is my thing, though.
Yeah,
I'm taking it back now.
So this first started happening with the creator of Friday the 13th. He was able to get his rights back from a studio. I can't remember.
Oh, he's already gotten them back?
I believe he's already gotten it back. It's starting to become really more noticed because it's starting to happen with the Terminator franchise, and especially with Terminator Dark Fate about to be coming out. Like, that may throw a cock in the wrench for Paramount Studios.
Yeah, well, I read in that article, Terminator comes out, I think, November 1st.
Yeah.
But the deal or the clause on the Terminator property expires next November. It's like November of 2020.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll get to this later in the story, but that does make me wonder if Paramount's going to be like, okay, let's pump out at least one more so we can
one more Terminator.
Get the last little juice out of it before we lose these rights.
It's possible. I mean, Paramount already did that with the release of Pet Sematary earlier this year because
I
they
didn't
had
know that's why they made it.
Yeah, they had a termination letter being sent over to them saying like, hey, you're gonna lose the rights to Pet Sematary in X amount of time, and they go, all right, well, let's make a Pet Sematary movie so that way we can so that's why that happened. But
there's
it's looking
a quote
like
in there. They said,
oh, go ahead.
It's the kind of use it or lose it philosophy.
Oh yeah,
kind
I
of
see
what
it.
because they were like, well, technically we have 2 years before we actually lose it. So
it's also not a surprising thing for studios to do. I mean, that
it makes sense.
Fantastic Four movie from a couple of years ago, they made that movie mostly because
it's like, dude, if we don't do anything with this license, we're gonna lose it forever.
Yeah, well,
just make something so we can.
Instead, they lost their studio. So sorry, that was really mean. But this is starting to become a lot more noticeable because termination letters or notices are starting to be given out to Disney, who Framed Roger Rabbit. They have the rights to that movie, so that could be taken back from them. The writers or the screenwriter of Beetlejuice is about to get his that movie back from Warner Bros. As well. So, and it looks like Predator and Nightmare on Elm Street could be possibilities of this happening too. So
all these iconic 80s series.
Yeah, which are again 80s reboot type things are really big right now, and studios are trying to do it. But if creators are seeing how studios are handling it kind of poorly or not as well as they would like already, or if they just want the money back or their own or their own stuff just to be back in their hands.
I don't want you to keep making these crappy versions of these. You're kind of
So maybe this will be a sign that we'll be seeing a lot of these type of properties being fast-tracked by studios.
Yeah, there's one or two possibilities, I guess. Like either one, all of a sudden, every new movie, I mean, even more than it already is a reboot, sequel, prequel, soft reboot, reimagining.
A lot quicker
remake
than normal.
Of these franchises in a last-ditch effort to make a couple bucks before they lose the rights. Or they don't act on it, and then maybe we'll see less of these sorts of reboots, prequels, whatever going down in the future.
I think there's a possible third option too, and that's if these creators are able to get the rights back to their properties, then it's possible that they will look elsewhere to have their stuff fully realized, maybe in better
who's going to do this
version,
better?
And they will be looking at streaming services, especially Netflix. I think that's a very real possibility. I think they'll probably see that maybe for their properties that a television format works better, and they'll be going towards these services like a Netflix or
like
maybe a CBS All Access
thing.
Or even Amazon Studios not make them into movies but into television shows. I think that's a very possible situation. So, and that would be kind of rough if that happens, because I think that would be cool to have some of these as television series, but I also like having lots of content being given to me at theaters, and I like creators still trying things as a movie format too.
Mm-hmm. No, my idealistic perfect world is that, it's finally time. Okay, guys, we made a lot of these reboots. We made a lot of money off of it, but it's finally time we start making our own stuff again.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Like
because that would be awesome.
I mean, I like franchises. I like blockbusters too. But at the end of the day, though, like it does get tiring.
People can make new franchises,
especially if they're poor too. Like if these franchises being rebooted are very poor to begin with, then it's like, well, why not go look elsewhere instead of like trying to make something that's already beaten dead.
So fingers crossed for fresh content in the future.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's basically what we have to say about that. But I am still
35
surprised.
Years. Yeah, all those 80s things expiring. That's crazy.
And if that clause still continues, if it doesn't change, then we will see that with like things in the 90s or things even in the early 2000s, and that's scary to think of. So
are like early 2000s movies like old now?
Probably.
I guess like 2000, because that's like 20 years. 20 years is I'd say a good amount of time to call something old.
Does it seem like a lot of early 2000s movies don't age well?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's weird, like because
That was
like
a
in the
weird
2000s,
time.
you watch movies and you can just tell that they're older movies.
Yeah.
But now you're seeing, if you go back and watch these movies that look totally normal, now they look like they're just older movies.
Yeah, they just look. They just
not
look
all
older,
of them. Some
or
of
they
them
look
age really
bad.
well, but a lot
Yeah.
of them are just kind of like not even how the characters speak or the types of stories that are told or how they look, like wardrobe wise, but just the look of how they're filmed.
Yeah.
It's like this is older now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
So,
crazy.
I mean,
always
that's
changing.
That's also a big possibility that we're gonna see stuff like that happen too. And again, like I am so weirded out that not a lot of outlets are running with this story,
Yeah, I mean it's.
or at least talking about
I
it.
guess it's a lot of numbers and a lot of like legal stuff.
But still,
maybe
this
once
is kind of a big deal, right?
I thought so.
Yeah,
Maybe when
that's why
more
we're talking about it.
Maybe when more things start actually happening, like they actually are pumping out one last Terminator movie, or they actually are blah blah blah.
That's true though. If we suddenly hear like, hey, Paramount doesn't have Terminator franchise anymore, then I think that's when people are gonna be like,
Yeah.
wait, what are you? And then people are gonna be like, well, if you, or at least Hollywood Reporter is gonna be like, look at this, because that's the ones that are writing this exclusive.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting, and I don't know if you need to keep an eye out on if that's gonna change at all, but it's at least worth mentioning.
Yeah, time's passing and things are expiring.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
all right,
that's the last story we had, really.
perfect.
Joker is really the only new movie coming out this week, I think. The only, at least wide, major new release. I mean, you heard my thoughts on it, but I'm sure everybody who sees it's going to have something a little bit different to say. I don't want to be overly negative about it. I just feel like, it feels very amateurish in a lot of ways, but it doesn't realize how amateurish it is. It's just, it thinks it's something very serious and artistic.
That
But
being said, it's gonna open big.
It's gonna be
Expect
huge.
big numbers.
Yeah, it broke Venom's early show record last night. I think it made like 13.5 million or something.
Yeah, that's what
Thursday
I read.
night.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's on track for like 80+ million domestic opening, which would break Venom's record. I can't remember Venom's specific record off the top of my head, but when it does that, and it will officially be the highest October opening weekend in history, I believe.
Well, I normally
all records are broken by superhero
Yeah.
movies. Every single record is.
Yeah, I mean, normally when it comes to Venom, I would be more happy to hear that. But then again, I'm very nervous about how I think of Joker, so maybe I'll come back and be like, you know what, Venom wasn't that bad.
Yeah. Just message me after you see it. Just a quick little like, yeah, I kind of see what you're saying, or like,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, but I bought it a little more.
No, I'm definitely gonna be talking to you after this movie.
This
sure.
is no hill I'm gonna die on, but it's eye-opening to see how many people like on their immediate reaction is like, oh my god, this is the deepest thing I've ever
This
seen.
is amazing. This
It's
is
so
spectacular.
deep. It's like, no.
And then I come into the office and I'm like, it was so amazing.
Best Picture 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, go see it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The controversy around it, again, I feel like was way overblown. The movie is nowhere near worth the controversy.
Yeah.
But again, stay home if you're worried. It's not worth it.
And in case if you're not sure about what this controversy is, we have last week's podcast available, and we talked a lot about what's happening with the controversy about this movie and like what you should do. If you should be cautious about it or be have any concern. That's all there in case if you're curious.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, so again, thank you guys for listening, and like I said earlier, our podcast is available with many other episodes on all podcast platforms or on silverscreeninsider.com, where you can also find all those discussion points that we just had up on our site, as well as an entire movie database filled with all the information needed to run a theater smoothly.
Yeah. Awesome. Have a good weekend, guys.
All right, everyone be safe. Have fun.